the doctor, she took my husband and I into a little room, explained all this to us. And then she said that given the severity of the fetus's condition, they never use the word baby, that we might want to consider having a reduction. And so,
which is slang for abortion.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've just been given this onslaught of information, and now she was suggesting a reduction. And it took me a few seconds to realize what she was saying. But my husband, I really appreciate him. I tend to be more, I guess, a bit quieter, and I was not ready to respond in any way. I have no idea what to say. But my husband just immediately, he said, he's like, no, like, I know what you're talking about abortion, but you need to know that we are people of life, and we are going to fight for our son's life.
Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of the Marriage After God podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Smith. Before we jump into today's incredible conversation, I wanted to ask you for two quick favors. First, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button or like button wherever you're listening or watching. It helps us reach more couples who need encouragement in their marriage. And second, if this podcast has blessed you, would you leave us a review? It takes just a minute, but makes a huge difference. Also, if you're looking for some practical ways to strengthen your marriage and to support this podcast, check out our marriage devotionals at shop.marriageaftergod.com. These resources have helped thousands of couples grow closer to God and each other. All right, let's get into today's episode. When Christin Rosa was 19 weeks pregnant with twins, doctors delivered devastating news. Her son, Nate, had a massive hole in his diaphragm. His organs were in the wrong place, and his lungs were severely underdeveloped. Without treatment, he'd suffocate at birth. With treatment, just a 25% chance of survival. The doctor's recommendation, abortion, what they called reduction. But Christin and her husband, Mauricio, are people of life, and they chose to fight instead. In this powerful conversation, Christin shares the raw reality of advocating for your child when the medical system writes them off. We talk about what it's like when your marriage is already struggling, and then you face the unimaginable. How do you trust God when doctors say there's no hope? What does it look like to stand for truth when you're terrified? And how do you navigate a healthcare system that values cost over life? Christin's story isn't just about a miracle baby, though Nate did survive against all odds. It's about a marriage refined by fire, a faith tested by impossible circumstances, and a God who shows up in hospital rooms when everything feels hopeless. This is Christin Rosa, and her book is called Saving Nate. Let's dive in. Christin Rosa, welcome to the Marriage After God podcast. Super happy to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you.
So you came through in my emails. You reached out, and I looked at your story, and I immediately was like, I think I want to talk to you because I love talking about kids. I have 6 kids of my own. I love family, and it sounds like you do too. And the story that you have that God's been writing with your family is one I know of many that have dealt with these types of stories. And so I'm excited to get into your story and the book that you got a chance to write about your story and your children's story. And but before we do that, why don't we just start off with, why don't you share who you are, a little bit of your background, how long you've been married, your husband's name, how many kids you have,
Sure.
And we'll start with some of the personal testimony side of things.
Sounds good. Yeah, well, my name's Christin Rosa, and I'm actually from Canada. So I live in Alberta, which is just north of Montana. And I've been married to my husband, Mauricio, for I think 17 years now. And it's crazy how long we've been married, and we start to lose track.
I know. We're coming up on 19 years, and it's just, I can't even believe it that we're so close to 20. It's crazy.
I know. Yeah, it really is crazy. And actually, my husband is from Brazil originally, and he came to Canada to do a master's of architecture. And after he finished his studies, he ended up getting a job and staying here. And I had been teaching English in China for a couple of years. And when I was praying about where I should go next and what I should do, I felt the Lord leading me to the city that we live in, Calgary, which is not where I'm from originally. And so I ended up coming, found a job. And after a couple of months, I was like, God, what am I doing here? I don't know anyone. My family's back home and all my friends, and they're wondering why I'm here. And then I visited a church and was invited to a small group. And then at that small group, that first night, I met my husband. And
oh man,
yeah,
that's so cool. Now you know why God had you move.
Exactly. And we had just an immediate connection. I was really impressed with his English, actually, as someone who had just come from China teaching English. Um, yeah, I was just really impressed with, and also I could tell that he really loved the Lord, and
Mm.
that was something that I was looking for in a spouse, right? So, and he same kind of thing. He appreciated that I love the Lord, and I had been in China through a Christian organization, and yeah, so we just connected, and so I ended up staying in Calgary where we live, and um, we got married 2 years later, and 5 years after getting married, we had our first son, Thomas. He was born in 2013. And then almost 4 years later, I had my twins, boy girl
Yeah.
twins, Nate and Emma. And yeah, so life with the kids, I mean, it's great. It can be really challenging and chaotic, but we're just, we're so thankful that the Lord has blessed us with our family. We experienced a little bit of infertility before having Thomas. And so, yeah, the Lord really,
Thomas is your first.
Thomas is our first. Yeah. He's our,
And so I was going to ask, that's why the 5 years, you were trying and couldn't for 5 years.
well, not 100%. My husband, so Mauricio, he felt we weren't quite ready for kids when we first got married. So it was about 3 years until we actually started trying. And so, but I've been hoping to have kids for, almost as soon as we got married. So for me, the wait felt very long, but the Lord in his perfect timing, he brought Thomas at, yeah, there's a story around that, but it was just perfect timing. And, yeah, so that,
Yeah, we had our first around 5 years into our marriage, partly from selfish reasons, partly from issues we were having with our sex life, and so it was a mix of things. But yeah, so I get that, waiting 5 years. But I look back now and I wish I would have had kids right away.
yeah,
My oldest would be 18 now.
okay.
We'd be in a whole new world.
Yeah,
He's about to turn 13 though, which we're pretty stoked about that. But
okay, yeah, our Thomas is he's 12, so
oh, cool, yeah,
so
mine's 12, yeah,
about the same age, yeah.
amazing. So I do got a question. So you said Mauricio, your husband, didn't feel you guys were quite ready, but you felt getting into marriage that you were ready. You wanted children right away. Can I ask, what was that dynamic like? Relationally, spiritually, how are you guys navigating that? Because I know this is an issue in a lot of marriages where one either doesn't want kids or isn't ready.
Yeah.
The other one might be in a different place with that. How did you guys navigate that?
Yeah, well, I think when we got married, well, before we got married, I know for myself, I thought, marriage was going to be amazing. It was going to be, we'd have
Solve all life's problems.
Yeah, exactly. We would walk off into the sunset, and yes, but almost immediately, marriage was hard for us. It was not easy, even on the honeymoon. Like um, and I think we were both really surprised by that. And so the first few years of marriage were really hard, like really hard. And actually, in my book, I mentioned it just really briefly, but it was almost like we were sandpaper, you know. And so, like we
just rubbing,
yeah. And we kept getting stuck, just constant. I remember sitting on the couch many evenings and just having these long, hard conversations, and I dreaded those conversations. But over time, that the sandpaper started smoothing out a bit, and
yeah,
and so I think because of the issues that we were having as a couple, my husband just felt that, yeah, we weren't ready to bring children into the mix. And he was probably right. But for me, just being a woman and, just have that strong desire to start a family, it was difficult for me. And so, but looking back, I think I was in a lukewarm stage of my faith. And I think I was being fairly selfish myself for just in all regards of life, actually, And so perhaps I wasn't ready for kids either, and so I'm thankful the Lord brought us through that time of infertility, because that was something that, you know, caused me to go to him, in prayer.
Mhm.
And he used that to, work on my life, and then the things that came afterwards, the things I wrote about in my book and things after that, like the Lord used all of these difficult things in my life to shape my character.
Yeah.
And you know and he used these things also for our marriage, to you know draw us as a married couple closer to each other, as well as we draw have been drawing closer to the Lord. So
Mhm.
yeah, anyway, but it was a difficult
Isn't it amazing
4.5
how
years. Yeah.
marriage so quickly shows us how selfish we are?
Yes.
We think
Yeah.
before getting married, like I actually genuinely thought, I was like, I probably won't ever fight with my wife because I'm a pretty easygoing person. Like I didn't have like big arguments with people. I was
Right.
like, I'm pretty easy.
Yeah.
And then like how selfish we were, like
Mhm.
realizing it so quickly when you have to live life
Mhm.
with another person.
Yes, definitely.
And
Yes.
we get challenged in all of our beliefs from the Bible of,
Exactly.
you know,
Yeah.
looking to the interests of others and not just your own interests, and
Yes.
treating others as you like to be treated,
Yeah.
and servant heart, and oh
Yes.
man,
I know.
it's amazing how that God does that. I do got a question. I know you look back now and you probably think like, oh, maybe we weren't ready for kids.
Mhm.
I always do like to challenge this idea. Not that
Mhm. Mhm.
kids fix everything, but just like you get married and like God used your marriage to refine you.
Mhm. Mhm.
I believe children do the same thing. Do you think that some of those rough edges, some of that sandpaper would have smoothed out quicker if you guys were forced to do it sooner with having children?
That is very possible.
I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes it goes the other way, but
Right. Well, the reality is, it probably would have, yeah, it very well could have helped us, because what was happening at the time, for those first few years of being just the two of us, I mean,
yeah.
nothing improved all that much, right? Until, I would say, things didn't improve until I was pregnant with my son,
Oh, wow.
at 4 years. So,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah.
That's interesting.
But at the same
Yeah.
time, I couldn't force my husband to
Well, and you
to
also,
be ready.
you were struggling with infertility. So it's not like you could have forced it anyway.
That's true.
There's a lot of reliance on the Lord in that.
Yes.
And you can't force your husband. He's got
Yeah.
to walk that
Yeah.
out and
Mhm.
surrender as well. So
Mhm.
it's just, we have a lot of notions that we've been given over the years, just generationally,
Mhm.
societally, about children. And when we were pregnant, even before we were pregnant with our first, almost everything we ever heard, and I've said this a lot on my podcast, so everyone that's listening right now,
Yeah.
sorry, but
Yeah.
it matters. Just all negative.
Hmm.
Like, oh, get your loan out of the way now. You're traveling out of the way now,
Yeah.
because once you have kids, it's all going to be over.
Right.
Get your good rest now, because once you have kids, it's going to be over. And some of that
Mhm.
is, though true,
Mhm.
the way it's communicated, even from believers,
Yeah.
is very anti-children, very anti-family.
Definitely.
And so I nowadays I like to challenge just ideas of like, well, maybe we weren't ready. And I even talk to people that they're like, oh, I need to get my career in order. We want to make sure there's enough money in the bank. And those things are good things to pursue.
Sure.
But I personally just don't think that any of those things
Mhm.
are necessary for having a good, healthy family. And to be honest, like the more I have children, the more children I have 6 now.
Yeah.
And even having our first, it's forced me to step up my game
Right.
in every aspect of my life,
Right.
more so than before I had children. So,
Sure.
not judging you on
Yeah.
your decision.
No.
We had a very similar story. So,
Mhm.
I just I look at those things and think, I think sometimes we think we know what's best,
That's
and
Mhm.
often we don't.
Yeah.
And children are a blessing,
They are a blessing.
and I know you know that.
100%. Yeah.
I do have a question about. So in the beginning, there's always so many dynamics that make marriage hard. I wouldn't know about having how would I even say it? Intercultural. Like, so he's from Brazil. You spend time in China. You're from Canada.
Mhm.
Was some of that cultural differences, some of those backgrounds, adding to this struggle, some of the difficulties in your marriage, and how did some of that play out for you guys?
Yeah. Actually, yes, it made things quite difficult. Actually, when I met Mauricio, I actually met him in a group of Canadians. Like the small group was all Canadian, young adults, and then there was Mauricio. And he
Oh,
and
that's
he
awesome.
yeah,
Yeah.
and he was just like one of the guys, and so I met him in a Canadian context. But when we got married, we met a pastor who had just come from Brazil, and he wanted to start a Brazilian church plant. And so my
Hmm.
husband, was very excited about being part of that, and so was part of this Brazilian church plant here in Calgary. And so I was part of that as his wife. And so I would go to church on Sunday, and everything was in Portuguese.
Portuguese, yep.
And I did not know the language. So I was kind of immersed and had to, try to learn the language. And so obviously some people spoke English, but when they're all together, they were all speaking Portuguese, and all of our friends were Brazilian, and Brazilians are lovely people, very warm.
Yep.
But I felt like, okay, here I am. I'm living in my country, but I'm not actually in our social group, our friends.
Very quickly changed.
Yes. And so that definitely was part of what made those beginning years really difficult. And my husband, like, he loved serving in the church, and he was very passionate about, he's always been very passionate about helping people and serving the Lord, and loves the Lord. But unfortunately, part of the issue was at the beginning, he didn't recognize maybe that wasn't working for me. And he also had a responsibility to me as his wife to consider what I needed as well. And just there was a lot of overcommitment with church. So there wasn't really we weren't spending a lot of time together. It was
Yeah.
just go to work, come home, run to the church, do this, do that almost every night of the week. And so we were not in a healthy place. And that's one of the things the Lord has, you know, he's been working in my husband's life in that regard, to recognize, okay, that he needs to have boundaries. And you know and for me, I've needed to um, be able to forgive him for things that happened earlier in the marriage, where there was no balance, and I kind of felt like I was neglected, the marriage was neglected. And so, yeah. And for me right now, in marriage, like, it's important for me, and I've learned this, that I can't keep bringing up the past. You know, like my husband, he's expressed to me, like, that was then, that's not now. Like, I'm
Yeah.
changed. I recognize I made these mistakes, and so we both have had to learn, how to do life as a married couple in a better
Yeah.
way. Because I was by no means perfect. But just this overcommitment and just going all the time. That certainly didn't help things for us.
I just want to let all my listeners know that Christin requested to have her husband on the episode with us, and there was a little bit of miscommunication, and I would have loved to have him here. So that would have been, because I'm thinking of questions I want to ask him, but he's not here. So
I'm sorry.
but he, maybe next time we'll have him on. What was so I love this direction. We're going to talk about your kids in a bit, and that story, but I think this is really good stuff. So you're in a Brazilian church. They're speaking Portuguese. By the way, I've been to Brazil. I spent 2 weeks on the Amazon River there. I loved it. It was out of all the travels I've done, Brazil was like my favorite country I've ever been to. Really good food, really awesome people.
Yes.
And so you're in this church. What was kind of did he come to this realization that's a change needing to be made? And was it you? Did you come to him and say, hey, I need something different. This is difficult for these reasons. How did that conversation come about, and what was the result of that? Are you still in a all Brazilian church? Did you guys still, figure out a way to mix that up?
Well, when we had been married, so just a few months before we actually became pregnant with our first child, with Thomas, Mauricio, he knew he had overextended himself. He was exhausted. He was busy with his job as an architect at the church, and actually, I'm so thankful. But an older man from our small group, actually approached Mauricio and spoke to him, in a kind and loving way, but spoke the truth in love, and just kind of said,
Mm.
uh, he could see that all of this busyness was taking a toll on not only Mauricio but our marriage. And so,
Yeah.
this man spoke with him, and Mauricio, he heard the message, and he realized that, yeah, something had to change. And then around the same time, it would have been the summer. Oh, I don't even summer of 2012. We somehow started thinking about going to Brazil and spending a year there, because we weren't um, we weren't getting pregnant, and we thought, well, like my husband wanted to pursue perhaps starting a nonprofit mission organization between Canada and Brazil. So we thought, we could go
Mm.
there, I could learn the language a little better, spend time with his family. So we had this wonderful idea of going to Brazil. And so, but we also knew that it would be an opportunity for us to be able to leave our jobs in Canada and and just kind of have a break from everything, and kind of like reset. And so, yeah, we found someone to rent our house and set everything up. And we had actually moved out of our house. We were going to spend a couple weeks with my family before moving, like going to Brazil. And it was during that time that I found out I was expecting.
Wow.
And and we were
God's
like,
like, nope.
yeah. Well, we were like, oh my goodness, like, what are we going to do? Like, God, what should we do? We just quit our jobs. And yeah, that certainly wasn't the plan. Of course, we were very thrilled, but
Yeah.
but after praying, we felt that the Lord still wanted us to go to Brazil, and so we just came back after 6 months instead of a year, so that I could have Thomas back home. But it
Mm.
ended up being just a beautiful thing because we did get to have that break, that reset, and then
That's awesome. So you guys spent 6 months in
we
Brazil with his
did,
family.
and then his
That's really
family
cool.
got to be part of the joy of expecting, our first
Hmm.
child, and then we actually stayed with my family for 4 months because our house was rented out, um, in Calgary. So we stayed in Edmonton, where I'm from, and we're there for 4 months. And my family got to be part of the last 2 months of pregnancy and the first 2 months of Thomas's life after he was born. So anyway, God had a really beautiful plan. And I would say after Thomas was born, for the first couple years, um, we like Mauricio paced himself and wasn't overly
Hmm.
involved. And then it kind of crept up. I wish he was here. I feel bad. I'm not trying to throw him under the
Yeah.
bus. It was just something that, anyway, it happened again. But again, the Lord was good and helped.
Yeah. We don't always get the right idea the first time around.
Yeah,
It takes us sometimes as men.
yeah, yeah,
I know how that goes, but I think it's a human thing. Like
yeah.
it,
But I want
you
to
know.
say, like, he's a wonderful husband and father, and
Mhm.
he takes his role as as the head of the household, and like
Mhm.
he takes his role really seriously. Like he does everything he can to lead our kids, in the ways of the Lord, and I really appreciate him. So he's got a lot of zeal and a lot of passion, and just
Yeah, I could tell
you know,
wanting to start nonprofits and
yeah,
do all. He's got a lot of vision,
yeah.
which is really cool.
And actually, he's now a full-time pastor. So
Oh wow,
yeah,
there you go.
yeah. So
So he's no longer doing is it
arch-
engineering or architecture?
yeah,
That's
not
what it was.
anymore. He's now moved into full-time ministry. So
Wow. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
That's awesome. So another question. So there was that moment that, by the way, the power of being in Christian fellowship. I was just talking to my son this morning on the way to jiu-jitsu. I was explaining to him how powerful it is to be around people. We were talking about the world, and he's like, do some people sometimes just go into the mountains and, get a cabin? They just live off the land and they don't like, I'm like, yeah, I was like that you could do that. And I said, and maybe there's a season that might be valuable for whatever reason. But I said, we're created to be in community. We're created to be in fellowship, and we need people. We're not meant to be isolated for extended periods of time, maybe for a season. But, so when you talked about being in your small group and an older gentleman, an elder in the church, maybe not by position, but by age and spiritual maturity, comes up to your husband and speaks truth and love. And that's exactly what we're supposed to do for each other.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe he would have come to that conclusion. Maybe you would have maybe you guys would have had a conversation, and God still works that way and moves in us and convicts our hearts. But I think often it's God uses his church to help his church. And
that's right.
So I that's a really awesome thing that you guys were part of this small group, and they knew you well enough to see, hey, there's some stuff that needs to be worked on. How I'm assuming this gentleman speaks to your husband and he's like, yeah, actually, I see that. Probably started making some adjustments. You guys probably had some really good conversations after that of how to move forward and what God's doing and praying through that. How soon after that did you get pregnant?
Probably 4 months. It would have been 4 months later. Yeah. I think God was waiting for for us to leave everything, leave the jobs, rent out the house, so that there was no way to go back to the crazy lifestyle that we had had. So the ties were cut, and then we found out. Okay.
Well, and that's why I was kind of trying to make that correlation of like, sometimes that happens, like the unity between the husband and the wife, and that the power that's there. Sometimes, like I don't know why you guys struggled with infertility. I don't want to say I know that, but there is something powerful about when you feel like there's disconnect and what that can cause internally in your body and in your heart and your mind.
That's right.
And then the power of that unity when you come together and you're like, wow, maybe this is the first time we've ever felt on the same page, felt close, felt intimate. Yeah. And how that changes you physiologically and in your heart and spiritually, and how powerful that is. So I just not trying to make false correlations, but there is clearly a correlation there between a heart change and then a biology change.
Sure.
So
that's right. I agree. That was part of it for sure. And also just God's perfect timing, right? Because but I think everything that happened had to happen in order for.
Well, he's getting your hearts, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, you guys, you were realizing like I felt really selfish, and whether he was thinking or not was moving in his own direction, and there was not much unity there, and God was working in your hearts. Like he used all my wife and I's selfishness to get us to like the end of ourselves. Yeah, exactly. And we had to get to the end of ourselves, and there's lots of times in our life that's had to happen where God has to break us down, and he's like, because he cares more about our who we are and our character than he does our happiness and our comfort.
Exactly. Yeah. And
let's talk about, go ahead.
I hadn't quite learned that yet. I was still learning that. And I think it leads up to this story about the twin pregnancy. But I thought, I'll just say this. I thought that having a baby would, that was going to solve all the, heart issues that I had, right? That, so I had Thomas. But of course, no, right? In the end, we need Jesus. And Jesus.
There's only one person that heals us.
Exactly. Yeah. And he's the only one that can fill us and give us that true contentment. And of course, children are wonderful. And I'm so thankful for Thomas. But a husband and then a child and whatever else it is you think you need, right? Maybe you think you need this house or that job or whatever, but that's just not enough. It's never going to feel that longing that we have in our heart, right? And I still had to learn that, and the Lord has brought me through things, starting with, I think, the twin pregnancy, and things beyond, like cancer, to really help me realize, like, okay, no, like I can't build my life on all these good things, these other things, like family and spouse and all these things. I need Jesus, and he has to be the foundation of my life. And so I'm thankful for what he's brought me through, and our family, what he's brought us through, because I think it's made us stronger. It's developed our faith muscles and brought us near to him, right?
No, what you're saying exactly identifies that scripture that Jesus says. He says, unless you hate your mother, father, wife, son, daughter, and follow me, and you have no part in my kingdom. And we see that word hate in a very different light than the Bible puts it. It means prefer. Like if you prefer And if you're, like you said, if you're looking for your fulfillment, your
Mhm.
satisfaction, your contentment in children, in your husband, in a job or a home or anything other than Christ,
Yeah.
we've missed the whole point.
Exactly.
And none of those things will satisfy.
That's right.
Again, they're good things.
Yeah.
Like it says, he who finds a wife finds a good thing.
Yep.
And he who has children like is blessed. Like they're arrows in a quiver.
Exactly.
And so these aren't bad things. It's just it's where we put, where you were putting, where I put my hope, where we put our faith.
Yes.
And we need to put our faith in Christ alone.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it doesn't matter how good our life is. It'll never be enough. It'll never be satisfying.
Mm-hmm.
It'll only lead us away from Christ.
Yeah, exactly.
When our eyes are that way. So,
Mm-hmm.
So you had your first son,
Mm-hmm.
who's now 12,
Mm-hmm.
turning 13.
Mm-hmm.
How long were you still dealing with infertility after you had your first?
Yes, we did. And actually, with our twins, we ended up doing a fertility treatment, just basically artificial insemination. So it was not IVF, but and so the chances of getting pregnant with that, like chances of conceiving is very low. It's only about 13% per try, and the chances of multiples is about maybe 1%, 1 to 2%. But we decided to go for this. We wanted to try this first, and then if we it was unsuccessful, we were going to pursue adoption. We thought we would just give it a go before anything else. But when we decided to do this, I just had this feeling like, because Thomas had come completely, it was just natural. Like, no, we didn't need any fertility treatments. Conceive him, I thought, oh boy, like, what if we end up with multiples? What if we end up with quadruplets? That was in my mind. I was like, quadruplets. Yeah. And like, children are wonderful and I love them.
But that would be intense.
Can I handle 4 babies? So when we went for the first ultrasound in August 2016, I was just about to ask the technician how many babies there were. But he's like, so I see 2 little beans in there. And so my husband had never thought we were going to have multiples. Like I had told him like my hunch, and he's like, oh no, don't worry, it's going to be fine. Anyway, but of course, after the initial shock, we were both very excited. We're going to be having twins. And so we started preparing, for bringing 2 more babies into the home. And, we were really looking forward to the ultrasound in November, where we would find out the gender of the babies. So super excited. We weren't in our minds, well, that was the only thing in our minds, right? It never crossed our minds that there could be anything wrong with any of the babies, right?
Quick question. Did you said you went the artificial insemination route? Was that successful in the first try?
No. So first try was not successful, but the second was. And they had,
which is still that's really good odds, because if it's 13% success rate, the second try is great. That's cool. It's like God answering a prayer.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. They had recommended we try 3 times. So we were going to do the 3 and then move on. But yeah, the Lord did answer our prayer for sure. But anyway, at this ultrasound in November, we found out that we were having a little boy and a little girl. So we were super thrilled. But then the doctor told us that our little boy had something called congenital diaphragmatic hernia. And he didn't really give us a lot of information, just...
So where the heart is growing outside of the chest?
So actually something like that. Yeah, actually what it is our son had a very large hole in his diaphragm muscle. And so that separates the lungs and the heart from the lower organs, the abdominal organs. So basically his intestines and his liver had come up into the right side of his chest, and they pushed everything over. And so his right lung was minuscule, tiny. And then the left lung was only 27% the size of a regular size healthy lung. So basically, at first, without any treatment, he would suffocate. He would not be able to survive.
This is what they told you.
Yeah. So we found all this information out the next week. We were referred to a clinic for high risk pregnancies. And so, yes, we spoke with the doctor there. She explained to us, you know, the condition. She told us that, if he did survive, he would have all these, list of all these issues.
Yeah.
And, and then
Real
she,
quick,
yeah.
how did they see this? Was it just with the ultrasound?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They were able to see all of that with just the ultrasound?
They,
At how many weeks?
so I was 19 weeks.
19 weeks.
Yeah.
And because they're twins, they're smaller than a normal 19-week
Actually,
baby, right?
so they were actually, I had two actually regular sized babies. So they were not small. They were,
Kristen.
yeah,
Super mom. Okay.
yeah. There are some twin pregnancies where one baby might be smaller than the other, but because these
Yeah.
were,
My wife is a twin.
oh, okay.
And she was smaller than her brother.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, they were both like, they were
Normal size.
6.5 pounds, both of them, when they were born.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
And so they were able to see all of that detail on just the ultrasounds. Did they use was it a high resolution, like 3D, or was it just regular?
I think it was just regular. And then they did eventually send me for an MRI as well, just to get a better picture of everything. But
and the MRI confirmed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Confirmed everything. But they basically could see from the ultrasound.
That's really impressive. I didn't know they could see that much. Because I've looked at ultrasounds, I can't barely tell what they are.
Yeah. Well, and I went to multiple ultrasounds. Every 2 weeks I had to go for an ultrasound, and I could never see it.
Yeah, they're like, here's the baby. You're like, really? Where?
Yeah. No. But it was there, and yeah, they could see it. So yeah, but then the doctor, she took my husband and I into a little room, explained all this to us, and then she said that given the severity of the fetus's condition, they never used the word baby, that we might want to consider having a reduction. And so,
which is slang for abortion.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I was just very overwhelmed, and just my mind was all confused. I'd just been given this onslaught of information, and now she was suggesting a reduction, and it took me a few seconds to realize what she was saying. But my husband, I really appreciate him. I tend to be more, I guess, a bit quieter. And I was not ready to respond in any way. I had no idea what to say. But my husband just immediately, he said, he's like, no, like, I know what you're talking about abortion, but you need to know that we are people of life, and we are going to fight for our son's life.
Good man.
Yes, I know.
Like him.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if I'd been alone. I don't know. I probably would just been like, no. Anyway.
I do think in many cases they would prefer you to be alone. That's an easier conversation when the husband's not around.
Right.
But that's probably not all doctors. I'm generalizing.
Right.
But
yeah. But
did they explain? So they were suggesting that. Did they explain why they thought that you should do that?
No, not really. They didn't really give a lot of information. They explained the condition, all the issues we might have, and then suggested that we have the reduction. And that's really it. In hindsight, looking back, like, they didn't talk about treatment at all as an option. And they didn't even talk about palliation. So giving birth to him.
What's palliation?
Palliation. This is something they brought up weeks later, after you've been saying, no, we want you to save him. We want you to save him. We want you to treat him. Then they suggested palliation, which basically is just, we would give birth to him, but he would not. See how it goes. Yeah, they would not do anything to try to save his life. So,
why would they not try? Why would they not do anything?
Well, I found out later that the severity of his condition really, like, most babies really wouldn't survive. We were given a 25% chance of survival for him. But up until that time, babies with that severe CDH wouldn't survive. But that's the cool thing, is that because we insisted on him receiving treatment, I'm getting ahead of myself, but he survived. And because of that, like, they've written, in the medical journals, they've written about this treatment and things that have been done. So now babies with, that severity of CDH can now be treated and it can be successful. So God used it all for good. But no, they didn't give us any information. And which, yeah, it was in hindsight very frustrating.
What do you suggest for a woman in this situation, hopefully with her husband, do? Like, because that's a disheartening situation. You're with an authoritative figure, a doctor, and they're suggesting these things,
Yes.
And not giving other options, not giving information, which I think is not right.
Yeah.
Personally, I'm very biased in my opinion on some of this stuff, all of this stuff you're talking about.
Yeah.
So what do you suggest to a woman in this situation and a husband?
Yeah. Well, I think, so we need to understand that these doctors are coming, like they're presenting this information, this choice, from a very different worldview than we have as Christians, right?
Yeah.
They really believe, like these doctors, they're very blinded. They don't see, they really believe that these babies with a congenital condition are disposable and don't have value, right? But we know as believers that is 100% false. That God, He's the creator of each and every one of us. We're all made in His image, and He's weaving together each of us in our mother's wombs, regardless of any health concern that we might have, any extra chromosomes that we might have. And so I just keep that in mind. They're functioning on a very, very different belief system than we are. And just, you have to stick to your guns. And that's what we had to do. Like, they came out.
You had to advocate for your baby on your own.
We 100% have to advocate for him. And if I may just say this, like, in Canada, our system, the healthcare system is very different. So I had no choice in terms of finding a different doctor. This was the only place that would follow my pregnancy once it was determined that it was a high risk pregnancy. But I believe, in the United States, you guys have the freedom to shop around and find a different doctor.
For now.
Right.
Yeah, this is a whole nother topic.
Okay.
But,
anyway.
What you're, I part of me wants to just jump into it, but I'm not gonna. Okay. But that is one of the problems with single payer health care, like what you guys have, is you don't get a choice. You're there, and also you mentioned when you were presented with this choice. But it's hardly a choice when they don't give you any other options.
Exactly.
They just say, this is what we think you should do.
Yeah.
And so you had to advocate for yourself without the options.
That's right.
You're like, okay. And also can you say it again? Is it palliative?
Yeah, they call it palliation.
Palliation.
You can call it.
Which is essentially
palliation.
You give birth and then they just leave it and let it.
Yeah. So, but I will say though, these days, thankfully, there usually is a team that will help you prepare for the passing of your baby. And so
But they don't have a prenatal unit there to help with issues like that?
No, they do.
They do. Okay.
Yeah. No, we have an excellent children's hospital with an excellent NICU. And
NICU,
it kind of goes back to, I'm not going to go into any detail, but the fact that it's a public healthcare system, there's a cost involved with saving babies. And
this is the other problem with this.
Right?
Yeah.
Anyway.
They have to put a dollar value on every single life.
Exactly.
And that's very difficult.
It is. But despite all that, we insisted that our son receive the care that he deserved. And the hospital, it's funny, there's a huge disconnect between the doctors who were following my pregnancy and then the doctors at the hospital. The surgeons, everyone at the hospital were amazing. And they did everything in their power to save my son because he was born. But before he was born, no one would advocate for him, except for us, which is very wrong. Yeah, very wrong. But yeah, we need to speak up for what is right and true. And so perinatal palliation, it's for babies that truly aren't expected to live. It actually is a really beautiful option because, obviously compared to abortion, you're giving birth to your baby. You get to hold your baby. And some children, maybe they're expected only to live a few hours or a few weeks, but you get to pour your love on your baby for as long as the Lord puts breath in their lungs, right? And often after the baby passes, you can bring in a photographer and take pictures and
Yeah.
take footprints and
Yeah.
do all that.
So we must have something similar here, but what was concerning me is the fact that what it sounds like is for some cases, if they could, give medical service to try and keep the baby alive, they won't, is essentially what you're saying. Yeah. Unless you advocate as hard as you did.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I know it's terrible. And
Yeah.
if I may, yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you
Saying
go
very
ahead.
quickly, there's no abortion law in Canada, so babies can be killed up until birth here across the entire country. So
Yeah.
it's an issue. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, I'm very, very anti all of that. So
Yes. Anyway.
So you have your babies. Nate is the one that had these issues. And you fought for him, and then the surgeons helped. And how were they able to help? And was he not as bad as they said he was after he was born?
He was definitely as bad as they said he was.
He was as bad. Okay.
Yeah. From the get-go, right after receiving the diagnosis, like we knew. Well, we knew that God is the one who's in control, right?
Yes.
And he's a big, strong, powerful God. So we knew it wasn't our choice to make. What they're, we weren't going to choose to end our child's life. We put that in God.
Leave that up to God. Yep.
Yeah, and you know what? There's an incredible peace that comes with giving him the control, and it was always supposed to be his to decide. And thankfully, from the very beginning, Mauricio and I, even though in that moment with that doctor, we didn't have a chance to discuss anything together, we were 100% aligned in our belief that our son deserved to be saved. And, and we, as soon as we left the clinic that day, we spent some time in prayer in the car, and we just decided, like, Lord, you take this, and we knew that God might choose to save our son, but we also knew that he might not, and that one way or the other, our son was going to be okay, because either he gets to stay here with us, and grow up, or he gets to go and be with the Lord, and we would see him again one day. And I think just having that perspective of knowing that one way or the other, like, yeah, we would be so devastated to lose him.
Rightfully too.
And that was a very real possibility. But we would still choose 100% to try to save him, and let God be God and show his power and show his, and to do this for his glory, and that's one of the reasons I wrote the book, is I want to give God glory for who he is and what he's done. And, to let people know we can put our trust and faith in him. If his word says, do not fear, for I am with you, do not be dismayed, for I am their God, then let's not be afraid. Let's trust in him to help us through these really difficult times that we go through.
And so what would you tell to a wife, a family that God's answer was not yes? And, because that happens too.
It does. And I, first of all, would just say, I'm so very, very sorry for the loss. I mean, that could have been us. And that would have been so devastating. I would encourage them to know that God is still good. That's his character. We can't understand why some of these things happen. We really can't. I mean, the Bible says that his ways are above our ways, his thoughts are above our thoughts. And that doesn't necessarily bring a lot of comfort. But I would say cling to the Lord, even as you experience and process this loss, because, the Lord is close. He's near to the brokenhearted, right?
Yeah. And when Jesus reminds us, blessed are those that mourn, for they will be comforted. Like there's a blessing in the mourning, not that it feels good, not that it's a blessing to lose a child.
No.
But there is a blessing in the comfort of God.
That's right.
That those who mourn receive. And so it's a hard subject.
It's very hard. Yeah.
There's so many days that we have friends that have children that have genetic disorders, and we support some families that raised a bunch of children that have issues that they were all born with, and so we have friends have lost many children, through miscarriages, and it's never an easy thing, and to be honest, especially when you love life and you love children and you know that they're blessings, it makes that pain more real.
Yes.
And but also that's how we honor life. Like mourning for the loss of a child. Like we've had many mothers in our church that have had miscarriages, and we've always said, like, hey, like, on your own time, but like don't pretend like it didn't happen.
Yeah, that's right.
Like, let us mourn with you.
Yes.
That was a child.
Yes.
It was your child. Yeah. And so a lot of our mothers, they would name them. We would mourn them. We would it's a beautiful thing. Now that's hard. And there's a lot of people that don't want to do that. Like, let's just pretend like that, know, but that devalues the life, and I'm not for that. So
yes. Yeah, you're right. Yes.
So you fought for your baby, and he got critical care that was needed. And did they do surgery after he was born and to fix the hernia and to move stuff in the right place? And was that 100% successful? Wow.
So yeah, for his, his journey in the hospital, every single little thing was like, each step was actually a big deal. And my husband,
little tiny infant.
Yeah, he would, like, every day we're in the hospital. He was off work for 3 weeks, thank goodness. So he could be there with me and with Nate, and obviously I had little Emma, newborn Emma, with me as well. And Thomas was with friends or my parents. Anyway, but my husband would be sending messages to people, like to our, our family and friends and the wider community too. Just posting prayer requests, like, so every little thing. Like, the first thing was, at the moment he was born, is like, hey, let's please pray that, he can be intubated well and read, like, and get the oxygen he needs, right? And that was a critical moment. And then, so they got him all hooked up, and it took about 50 minutes for them to attach all the wires and everything after he was initially intubated. And then they brought him to the NICU. But the doctors told Mauricio, like, he did better than expected. And
go Nate.
Exactly. And then, but we heard that phrase so many times throughout his journey in the hospital, that he did better than expected. So he had to be transferred from the hospital I gave birth to the children's hospital after when he was a day old. So again, that was going to be really traumatic for him. A lot of prayer went into that. He had to be stable before they could move him, but he made it. And they said he did better than expected. And then we needed him to stabilize again before he could have a surgery, which happened when he was 8 days old. And the surgery went better than expected. Like, just every step of the way. Yeah. We had, like, hundreds of people were praying for him. And
so little Nate was bringing the whole church together.
Oh, definitely. Yes.
Yeah, building faith in everyone.
Everyone was praying for him. And other churches too, and churches in Brazil. And it was just, so God he was definitely at work, and answering those prayers step by step. It wasn't like a boom, he's born and he's 100% healed. It wasn't that kind of situation, but it was this incremental, step by step. God is at work. God is at work. He's sustaining this little guy who's so fragile. And just we saw him transform from this very sick little baby to, a baby who was quite healthy and joyful. It was a really neat thing to watch.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
You kept saying that they kept saying, like, oh, he's doing better than expected. Not to speak down about the doctors, but they really didn't expect much. so praise God that Nate got to prove them wrong over and over and over again. I think that's such a cool story.
Yes.
And I'm imagining that this situation was bringing you and your husband closer together than ever before, probably, right?
Yeah, especially I would say, okay, before Nate was born, yes. I mean, we definitely were spending time together in prayer, praying for Nate. Actually, we had our main prayer request before the twins were born was that they would make it to 38 weeks, because Nate
Full
needed
term,
his
yeah.
lungs to develop as much as possible before being born. And so, you know, together we petitioned the Lord um, to to sustain them in utero for all those weeks.
Lots of relaxing, like minimal stress.
That's right.
Trying to
Yeah,
keep everything calm in the house
as much as possible with my
as much as
very
possible.
highly spirited 3-year-old at the time. Um, but you know, another thing that really helped us, I think, was the fact that we were really connected with our church. We were part of
Mhm.
a small group that was, so we were going to church every week and small group, I think every week or two. And so we together as a couple, you know, we were being supported by our church and they were
Yeah,
praying for us every week.
you weren't
Um,
doing it alone.
we were not doing it alone, and both of our families, you know, are they're believers, and so that prayer support that you know really covered us was so extremely helpful. And then we had discussions, Mauricio and I, like we wanted this pregnancy and Nate's life to be a testimony of God's goodness, right, and of the truth. So actually,
Yep.
Nathaniel, his name means gift of God. And so
Amen.
we wanted to choose a name like that to let everyone know, especially the doctors, that
Hmm.
you know what, he is a gift. No matter what anyone would say about his value, he's a gift. And then his middle name is Joshua. We chose that because it means basically I think it's like he is my salvation.
Hmm.
Um, and and so we chose that in faith to say that God is very capable of saving this little guy, you know,
Yep.
physically. And if not, he's gonna be saved, you know, spiritually, and we're gonna meet him again in heaven one day. And so we had a big baby shower for the twins in late January, 2 months before they were born. And so a lot of the church came for that, and Mauricio decided to share with everyone the names that we had chosen for the twins. And uh, we were going to keep it a secret until the babies were born, but anyway, he shared. But I
Hmm.
felt it was actually really appropriate, you know, in that moment to share, like, hey, this is what his name means. We're praying for this baby, and you know, God has a plan and purpose for him, no matter how long his life is, right? And so
Yep.
we were very much I'm very thankful that we were together through it all, like in we both knew that, yeah, that we could trust in God through this. And I believe God gave each of us individually just a peace, you know, that peace that surpasses all understanding. Because we really were bringing it to him. So after the babies were born, I mean, things were, it was intense. It was just really intense.
Oh, I bet having twins.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the extra work,
Yeah.
extra sleepless nights.
And then every day trying to get to the hospital, trying to spend as much time there as possible. But
Yeah.
for me, caring for a newborn, but also wanting to be there at Nate's bedside. You know, we had
Hmm.
a 3-year-old who could not be in Nate's room because he was so fragile that any noise would really disturb him. So we had to find places for Thomas to go during the day. And yes, it was exhausting, but I'm thankful that we could be there together, especially at the beginning. So
Yep.
while I was caring for Emma, you know, Mauricio would be there at Nate's bedside, praying for him, reading his Bible. And I'm thankful he had the time that he could
Hmm.
be doing that, you know,
Yeah.
where,
Praise God for that.
yeah, because I couldn't, for me, like, I'm thankful. Like, the verse that was just always going through my mind was just Joshua 1:9. You know, have I not commanded you, be strong and courageous, do not be terrified, do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. So that was just in my mind. I didn't have a lot of time to be studying my Bible as I was caring for Emma and trying to be there for Nate.
Yeah.
But Mauricio was there, and he was able to be that strong sort of strong figure, you know, to support our family and be there for Nate
Yeah.
too. So yeah.
Well, and it just sounds like the prevailing message in your story is standing for truth, standing for life, trusting God. Essentially, it's like, well, like you said, like, let's stop trying to be God.
Yeah.
Let's just trust Him
Yeah.
with whatever but along the way, we're going to pray for the things that we desire,
Yes, exactly.
that he's healthy, that he gets help, that he gets,
Yes.
but trusting God and standing for what God stands for
Exactly.
is the, sounds like is the message that you have in
That
your
is the
book.
message. Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't think, regardless of how things turn out, I don't think it's ever wrong for us to stand for truth and righteousness
That's right.
in life,
That's right.
no matter the outcome.
Mhm.
Like that's what we should be doing. And so I love that your story displays that so well, and God had a favorable outcome for you. And it sounds like Nate's doing really well.
Yes.
How old is he now?
He's 8 now.
Man,
Yeah.
so cool.
Yeah.
And his story, your story, God's story,
Mm-hmm.
has made some big changes in your world and in Canada. And so why don't you share with everyone the name of your book, which tells the whole story of all this in much more detail.
Okay, sure. Well, the book's called Saving Nate, Finding Hope After a Devastating Prenatal Diagnosis. Even when we were going through everything, I had a feeling that I would write about it one day. But obviously things were, well, for a few years after the twins were born, things were very chaotic and it was hard. But
no writing in that time.
Yeah, no. Actually, I did try. I started when the twins were 1, and then I had to
just
give
surviving.
it up. I had to give it up. It was not the right timing. But then in December 2020, I just felt the Holy Spirit sort of whisper to me that it was time to start writing. And so I was like, okay, God, I will. But I said, you're going to have to help me get this book published because I have no idea how to do that. But I just decided, okay, I'm going to be obedient to the writing and I'll trust God to work out the rest, right? But one thing, so I was staying home with my kids, and I knew that with the kids at home, I wouldn't be able to get much work done. So I just asked the Lord to put it on my parents' heart to watch the twins for me so I could start writing. So a few months later, my parents came to me. They knew I wanted to start writing. And they came to me and they said, we'd like to watch the twins for you once a week so you can work on your book. So I was like, oh, thank Jesus. So
that's so cool.
Yeah.
Praise God for that.
Yeah.
Christin, I really appreciate you sharing your story and just sharing the intimate details of how God was moving in your marriage and with your children, which I love the story. And it's not just a story, it's God's story.
That's right.
And of how he works, and he does crazy big things, and it's just awesome. And he does it for his own glory.
Yes. Yes.
And so thank you for sharing it. And thank you for giving me your time today on the Marriage After God podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been,
where can they get your book?
Well, you can get it from Tyndale.com, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, basically ChristianBooks.com.
Awesome. Yeah. I just hope everyone picks up a copy of her book, reads this amazing story of how God worked in Kristin's life and Nate's life, baby Nate, who's now 8, which is just incredible.
Yes,
yeah. Thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.